scope of my presentation very clear. If this is the land use map of the city of Toronto, there are two things. So what Chris has covered and the missing middle has started was the yellow belt, right? Like I extracted actually three land uses from the map. So they're neighborhoods, apartment neighborhoods, and mixed use. So if I'm now talking about Midrise 6 to 14 stories, I don't want you to leave the summit today and be like, wow, they increased it to 14 stories, that's amazing. Because that's not the case in the yellow belt, it's only the case under mixed use and apartment neighborhoods. So what has changed? Three things: policy, zoning, and design guidelines. And specifically, design guidelines changed first, then the zoning, then the policy. Under the design guidelines, we talked a lot about the wedding cake effect. So two major things have changed: the rear transition and the height allowance. So no more angular plane that dictate this wedding cake effect. There are two, maybe three, again, I don't want to get into the nuance, but simplify the build form. That's essentially what happened, and the height as well. On May, next month, we're gonna have an update for, that I haven't yet seen the actual document, but when I reviewed the agenda, there are some additional changes coming on the amenity space, type G, and the bicycle parking. Okay. The other thing that happened, so that was the guidelines, right? But then we also have seen changes to the zoning and the policy, and specifically for the zoning, what the city has allowed is FSI and height to change to be as of right. Now, this is probably the biggest move, and when the original Midrise building design guidelines came out in, I believe, 2013. It was before my time in Canada, so I don't remember. So like 2010, 2013, there was a discussion of, hey, let's make it as of right. I believe the chief planner, Jennifer Kismat, back then was the one proposing to make Midrise buildings as of right on the avenues. My private explanation is that the city probably didn't want to give up Section 37 money, because once you have an uptake on the zoning and density, you pay. Back then, it was a big part of a negotiation of how much you pay the city for that density, but it was brought up and cancelled, and for 10 years or 15 years, no one discussed it. Now, they changed the FSI and the height, so that's what it's going to allow those Midrise buildings to not require a full rezoning, a full ZBA, zoning bylaw amendment. And the policy, okay, so we're moving up in the hierarchy. There was an attempt to redesignate more avenues from the yellow to mixed use and apartment neighborhoods. That step was supposed to be citywide. It started from, I believe, only Ward 9 and 11. But it should have been citywide. But think about it. So now we have it as of right, the FSI, the density, the height, and more streets are moving from the yellow to the pink and orange. I want to, very, very briefly, to speak to one case study and share with you what we did here. So this is a site that we had on Bathurst, 2989 Bathurst Street, and again, it was once the council approved the increase in the FSI and the height, and then on the other side of the city, Canadian Tire appealed the zoning because they wanted more density. So this is on Bathurst and Lawrence. We had one appeal, and I thought, you know what, that's great. Like, council already approved it. I can go to C of A and ask for, to just honor council approval. Canadian Tire in Scarborough should not interfere with something that was already approved. I woke up in that morning thinking that's going to be the easiest C of A hearing of my life. And the committee declined our request. And that speaks to a challenge that getting things approved or massaged or, remodified through C of A is great, but it's still through C of A. There's a lot of uncertainty. I felt that they were, what's the opposite of empowered? Unempowered. to make a decision that was, and their mandate is to follow council decision or council, direction. And I thought that is going to be the easiest hearing of my life, and they declined, and I had to wait for the appeal to be over, or that appeal to be property specific. But at the end of the day, there's a risk with C of A. The neighbors were there saying how we didn't include them in the process and how this doesn't follow the Midrise building, accused us that this is untruthful, although this follows the the guidelines very accurately. And yeah, that was the experience. And I just wanted to show you I don't know if you can see it, but I can spell it out. But once you go to C of A, and I do have to say, I still go to, yet I have a project that is truly as of right, because most of the time, parking is still a trigger that triggers going to C of A for. So once you go to C of A, I'm going to ask for more things. Sorry, I'm realizing that I have people from the city here. But, and I'm being recorded. But one of the things that are now, putting the amenity space on the mechanical rooftop frees up space from the building itself for more residential units, and the amenity, putting it on the mechanical rooftop, doesn't trigger it as a story. So technically, this height of the building was allowed by the FSI, but I got another additional level of the additional story, because putting that amenity space on the mechanical rooftop doesn't trigger as an additional story. And if you've noticed my summary of what's going to come up in June to PNH, Planning and Housing Committee, you will see that the city acknowledges that and about to change it. So I think that's a good change, because that was something that, and I calculated how many units, about, 3 or 4 units, that residential units that we were able to get with that amenity space. And then we really massaged a little bit the setbacks to make the parking more efficient, so I could squeeze in more parking. But these are very light variances for those of you who go to the committee often. So that is a very welcome change. As I said, that entire presentation would have been a dream 5 years ago. And I will finish with an anecdote of what I think of this. So first of all, this entire presentation is almost like credit and kudos to the city. But when we were telling our kids that we're expecting a baby, my firstborn said, "I want a big brother." And I said, "Sweetie, we're simply too late for that." And I wonder if all of these things, if we're not 20 years too late for that. But anyway, thank you very much for listening to me today.